Fine Vikings head coach Mike Zimmer fed the media jackals this week, talking to the press on a Zoom press conference. Or was it was it Team or whatever Microsoft, the official sponsor of the NFL, like their software? It doesn't matter. But we have some thoughts on his thoughts. So let's dive into them today. So first off, Zimmer just talking about just missing the guys. Quote, I really miss being around the players. I want to get out there and coach them, correct them, teach them. They're probably going to get an extra dose of me once things get back to normal, right? And for me, I've always thought that Zimmer really is a teacher at heart. Like he would, just as much as he wants to coach in the NFL, like if the NFL never existed, he would be coaching high school football, like some small high school in like Division II in Illinois, and just like out there every single day twirling that whistle. He's a Phi Ed teacher on the side. I don't know. Like for me, like Zimmer's always struck me as a dude who just loves to teach the game as opposed to all the other pomp and circumstances that comes around with coaching. Well, if Zimmer could do just coach, no press, no hoopla, and do it for a tenth of the pay, he'd probably do it. Next, talking on training camp. Quote, I'll be more concerned about working with a technique and each and every player when we get there. That might take 3 weeks. Who knows? Each player is a little bit different. That will be the biggest factor. You can't just roll out the ball and play. You can't just say, here's a playbook. Now you go out there. It doesn't work like that. They know what to do, but they don't know how to do it, end quote. So I think that speaks to potentially what's going to happen with training camp this year, where I do think it's going to be truncated. I could easily see a spot where there are no preseason games, which, thank God. But also, I think it will impact the caliber and crispness of play early on. I think that you will find some really sloppy football. I think it may look like the XFL or the AAF out there for a couple of weeks, where even with veteran-heavy teams, which the Vikings are to a degree mid-level veterans, but that did lose some of their older guys. It is nice that the Vikings do have continuity on defense. Then it's nice that they do have continuity to a degree with Kubiak on offense, but they do have a lot of young players. They do have a lot of first-time contributors with the Vikings this year, so that could potentially hurt them. And Zimmer talking about could take 3 weeks. I mean, ideally, you would like at least 3 weeks to a month to work with the players, whether there's preseason games or not. So pending what happens with training camp and preseason, because training camp generally you get 2.5 weeks, and you got 4 weeks of preseason, so like 6.5 weeks. If you have to do all of that in 3 weeks, it's going to be rough. It's going to be rough, but we'll take what you can get at this point. Also on joint practices, he said this. Quote, the problem I foresee with having the joint practices is you may not be able to get your guys up to speed fast enough for what they have to do to opposed to worrying about another player. If it gets down to it, I can see there might be, depending on how much time we have during training camp and before the games, end quote. The Vikings last couple of years have had joint practices with the Jaguars and the Bengals, and now it did coincide with the Vikings playing those teams in preseason as well. But in the absence of preseason games, you may see teams, especially if they are deciding to have training camp in similar locations, get things together. But also, I mean, just adding that in as another factor, another variable, another full team, another full 90-man roster with support staff and coaches just getting together and roadinizing everything. Like I understand that they're going to get together for games, but I don't know, at this stage, especially early on in the reopening, TBD. If it happens, great. If it doesn't, whatever. On defensive changeover, he said this, quote, defensively, we're going to have some younger guys, but I think it's kind of refreshing, get a chance to work with some younger guys. By refreshing, I don't mean I'm glad guys are gone. Don't lie. I mean, it energizes us as coaches in trying to get these guys up to speed as fast as we can. End quote. He also compared it to a college team where you have a lot of turnover every single year with graduations and whatnot. And especially his pride and joy, that cornerback room are going to have a lot of young, fresh faces. You look at Gladney, you look at Dancer, you look at Harrison Hand, look at Neville Clark to go with Hughes and Holden Hill. And Chris Boyd. So yeah, Zimmer is fired up. Like this is you're able to teach brand new guys who don't even have potentially bad habits developed at the NFL level that some players on the previous roster may have. So you get to mold them in your own image and what you want to do on defense. So I'm sure that's very exciting to a guy like Mike Zimmer. Also, what he's been up to. Said this, quote, today I woke up, got on the skid steer, went in the back, did some work way back there, and I came back, a defensive staff meeting, offensive meetings with the players, and then I took a break, and that was this afternoon after the defensive meetings. I took a break, got on the tractor, and got the fields ready to plant, and then I came up here for a defensive meeting. And then in the evenings, we just kind of hang out and build a fire, get takeout. Adam loves smoking stuff on the smoker. He'll go jump in the hot tub, and I'll watch some Chicago PD or something, end quote. And you're seeing this around the league. You saw this with GMs and executives and scouts during the draft, is like they enjoyed being home. Like they enjoyed being around family in this very weird time. But I think that this is a bit of a wake-up call for the work-life balance where, I mean, coaches, they're grinding 20 hours a day. They're sleeping in the office. They're, ignoring family and, friends and whatnot. And there is something to be said about having that work-life balance, about being refreshed when you work, when life is good, as opposed to just grinding yourself down to the nub, burning the candle at both ends. And especially with guys like Zimmer, guys like Kubiak, who are a little bit more advanced in age and have had health problems that are probably directly tied to the amount of work that they put into their profession. I think this could be great. If you have a refreshed Mike Zimmer every single week, especially later on into the season, same thing with Gary Kubiak, how can that not benefit the Vikings? I think that can be a great thing, as well as I think that is sort of resetting the mindset about you have to get in there, like the Joe Gibbs mindset or the Marty Schottenheimer mindset. Is like on Thursday, you have to stay until 4 a.m. just grinding tape because there's one little slide. There's one little piece of tape that will give you the edge on Sunday, as opposed to guys like Chuck Noll, who was always home for dinner and chastises coaches who didn't go home. Same thing with Tony Dungy. It's where he learned it when he was a defensive back there at Pittsburgh. There is something to be said about football, yes, very important, but also life, also very important. And so if Zimmer's starting to figure that out, I mean, working on the ranch, having a glass of wine, apparently watching Chicago PD, executive producer Dick Wolf, boom. There you go. It can only benefit the Vikings. So even though all these press conferences, there's say blah, 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 but it is nice to see Zimmer sort of relax, sort of chilling. Those cracking jokes during the draft on Spielman, it's funny. It's good stuff. But your thoughts on our thoughts of Zimmer's thoughts? Let us know in the comment section below. Subscribe for daily Vikings takes. Want to support the work? Post something in the Venmo. Plus give us a follow on social media as well. Until next time. Skol. Production value.